First time I heard about the Tampa Bay Devil Rays dropping the devil from their name was last week, in the aftermath of the rumble with the Yankees down in Florida, which just goes to show that what's in a name isn't always descriptive. A devil by any other name can still raise hell aplenty. Tampa Bay claims they gave the devil his due in the hopes of reinventing the team and climbing out of the cellar this season. Whatever that reason, Tampa Bay, or the Rays as they're now called, have proven that changing a team's name isn't a major trauma with monumental logistical problems. As owner Stuart Sternberg put it, "We were tied to the past, and the past wasn't necessarily something we wanted to be known for." The Rays had something to prove, and the new name and logo showed that this was a new team. With the pieces they had assembled from previous years, they finally seemed ready to break through, and a strong spring training was evidence of this, as they finished 18-8. It didn't come without a few hiccups, as Kazmir, Zobrist, and Baldelli all suffered injuries. New acquisition Matt Garza was set to bolster the rotation, along with Shields and Edwin Jackson. April saw varying results, as while the Rays hovered around 500, parts of the team were notably beginning to prove themselves. The bullpen, which had been trashed for years, emerged as one of the best in the league, putting up a 2.52 ERA in April, led by Tony Percival, who didn't allow a single run all month. Pena put up good numbers, but Eric Hinsky made big plays all month, hitting .293 and almost becoming the first Ray to hit for the cycle. But the biggest event came in the debut of the new face of the franchise, one that every Rays fan already knows about. Evan Longoria, drafted in 2006, made his debut in April, after initially being cut from the roster. In just 6 games, he made his presence known, earning him a 6-year contract. Over the course of the year, he would rack up 85 RBIs and a 4.8 WAR, earning an All-Star nomination and Rookie of the Year. Along with Pena, Aki, Crawford, and others like Jason Bartlett, Cliff Floyd, and Willie Ibar, the offense, combined with an actually good pitching staff, led the Rays to division contention in May, as they defeated the Yankees on May 13th to improve to 23-16. Hank Steinbrenner even came out and said that the Yankees got to start playing the way the Rays are playing. The Rays put up a 19-10 record in May and sat in first at the end of the month, an absolutely unprecedented mark for the team this late in the season. Keep in mind, the most games above 500 they had before this year was 3. And that was back in opening week. June 5th, the Rays are in Boston, and because of course, some shenanigans ensue. Man, these teams really don't like each other. The previous night, Coco Crisp, on a steal attempt, slid into Jason Bartlett's leg, which Crisp alleged that he blocked the bag and jammed his thumb over. Later that night, Crisp tried to steal again, this time with Aki covering the bag, and he slid feet first. Madden took this as a sign of intent to injure, and with tensions beginning to boil, tonight, as Crisp comes to the plate, Shields makes his feelings clear.
Shields hits Crisp, and goal is going to head out. Here we go.
Lots of players got suspended that day, including Shields, Gomes, Jackson, Crawford, and Aki. But the blood feud remained, as Boston pitcher Jonathan Papelbon came out to say, "A bunch of bull what they did. All I gotta say is what comes around goes around. Man, payback's a bitch, I'll tell you what. This thing isn't all settled and done." Well, he's right about that, but for now, the Rays ended up striking back with their first sweep against Boston in franchise history. In typical Rays fashion, they managed to build a nice 7-game winning streak before immediately falling into a 7-game losing streak to walk into the All-Star break at 55-39. Still a great record, but now they sat a half game out of first, behind guess who? Scott Kazmir and Deandre Navarro represented the Rays at the All-Star game, as well as Longoria, who managed to sneak in through the final vote. He also became the first Ray to compete in the Home Run Derby, which he ended up sucking at, and he only hit 3 homers. But it's the thought that counts. Navarro was also quietly having a solid season, with nice defensive and offensive stats. For the first time in franchise history, the Rays were not sellers at the deadline, choosing not to make a single deal. I mean, they were sitting at 63-44, 3 games ahead of Boston, so it makes sense. But considering the past 10 years of this team is so foreign. Maybe they are different. I mean, hey, they even got a new theme song now.
It's another beautiful day in sunny Tampa Bay. You'll feel the heat intensified, exposed to our rays. The stands will start to rumble as the board is lit. The thunder of voices chanting, "Welcome to the pit!"
Swing can hit one. High and deep into center. Rays win. Rays win it. A 3-run home run by Carlos Pena. And the Rays, unbelievably, have come back to win this game with a 6-run ninth inning.
America's pastime, it's a hidden
Base hit down the left field line. Pena on his way to third. He's heading home. Pena heading for the plate. The throw is cut off. The Rays win the game.
Despite a whole bunch of injuries, the Rays went 21-7 in August, a franchise record to that point, and entered September with the best record in baseball. For the first time, they actually looked like a serious contender, and coming after a last-place finish is quite the jump. It's almost like all that potential finally paid off. Damn, it's nice to be a winner, isn't it? Hell, they even had concerts going on after games. 8 shows were played in 2008 after games, including a visit from MC Hammer. And notably, the team won all 8 of those games. They would continue with concerts from Pat Benatar, Smash Mouth, ZZ Top, Weezer, and Earth, Wind & Fire, even the goddamn Wiggles on multiple occasions. After suspending it in 2016, they brought the concerts back in 2023 with AJR. Man, they even had a goddamn animated series, The Defenders of the Game, which initially made its debut in 2007, returned in 2008, and is as wacky as you would expect, with Madden and Don Zimmer enlisting the help of Baldelli, Crawford, Kazmir, Upton, and Pena to fight evil baseball villains. Man, this show is just crazy. They got Raymond lore, they got people getting superpowers.
That's gonna look great on my Facebook page.
They launched a goddamn terrorist attack on the Trop. Holy shit! Ironically, one of them was a guy who was obsessed with random stats. The series was also developed by One Sum Agency, who are based in Montreal. A really cool city, they definitely won't come up again later. Not everything was going perfectly, however. Tony Percival, the team's closer, was dealing with injury issues, as even when he returned from the IL, his performance noticeably dipped, leading to his usage also dropping. In an interesting footnote, Instant Replay would make its debut at the Trop, with a review of whether a home run ball hit the foul pole or not. The Trop also saw the first time a call was overturned, when a Pena fly ball that was initially ruled as in play due to fan interference, but was overturned to be a homer. As the Rays continued to fight for their playoff hopes, they once again had to deal with Boston chomping at their heels, as they would play a crucial series in early September. Having already lost the first game, the Sox sat only a half game back, and the next day they found themselves in another hole, going into the ninth down 4-3, With the division potentially on the line, up to the plate stepped Dan Johnson, a man who has had a very unremarkable career as a big leaguer, and is really only here for some depth. There's no way this bum will do anything.
In the air to right field, struck well. Back goes Kotze towards the bullpen. It's gone.
Well, look at that. He actually did something for once. But there's no way it'll happen again. The Rays would go on to win 5-4 in what would turn out to be a crucial series win. I wonder who the pitcher was for Boston that night. Oh, would you look at that? Karma's a bitch, huh? On September 18th, Crawford would go down with a finger injury, leading him to miss the rest of the regular season. Madden stating he could come back if the Rays made the ALCS. They would have a chance, as 2 days later, they clinched their first ever playoff berth in franchise history. 6 days later, on the 26th, they clinched the division, and as the season came to a close, the Rays sat at 97-65. Keep in mind, their best season before this resulted in only 70 wins. In just 1 year, the Rays went from basement dwellers having lost almost 100 games to almost winning 100 games and heading into the postseason as division champs. To say the turnaround was unprecedented was an understatement, as it ended up setting the record for most wins by a team who finished last the previous year. From worst to first became the Rays' motto, as well as another, 9 = 8, the mantra of Madden, and the code the team has followed all season. Most players had no idea what it meant when he first introduced it in spring training, but some were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Cliff Floyd notably said, "It was a different speech than what you're accustomed to hearing when you come to spring training. It's usually, 'We've got a good team, you've just got to believe it.' It was different. So when he said it, people perked up. Whoa, okay. Let's figure out what this means and try to accomplish it. 9 players play hard for 9 innings equals 1 of the 8 postseason berths." And well, it worked out pretty well for them. It might also help that Madden is a pretty good manager, notably letting the team be themselves and stay loose. No yelling about loud music or clubhouse antics. He told the team before every game to treat them all the same, and while he can show discipline at times, the connection between manager and team was probably a key factor to their success. Hell, he even ended up getting a mohawk at one point. Pena ended up having another great year with 102 RBIs and 5.9 WAR to show for it. Longo, I already mentioned, had a fantastic rookie year, but overall the offense took a bit of a backseat in 08, having worse stats than 07. Now this time, it was the pitching who finally got their shit together and became one of the best in baseball. Kazmir, Shields, and Garza proved to be a reliable starting core, with the bullpen holding its own as well, with guys like Balfour, Chad Bradford, JP Howell, and Dan Wheeler. With Garza and Bartlett doing well, we can once again thank the Twins, as Young would go on to have a below-average year. Jumping forward a little bit, he would end up being traded in 2011 to Detroit in exchange for Cole Nelson and Lester Oliveros. And Brendan Harris was sent along with J.J. Hardy to Baltimore for Brett Jacobson and Jim Hoey, none of which amounted to anything notable. And if you think this is bad enough for the Twins, just you wait, because this trade tree is far from over. The Rays had become a pitching force, something they would continue to uphold to this day, and their strength was needed as they headed into unfamiliar territory. Welcome to Playoff Mountain, where 8 lucky teams have a shot of reaching the summit and becoming World Series champions. The road to the top is treacherous, and one slip can mean the end of the run. But does this team have what it takes to conquer the mountain? "11 wins to the top, starting in the American League Division Series against the Chicago White Sox. Not only do the Rays, with the best record in the AL, have home field advantage, they're also heavily favored to win. Surprisingly, Crawford was able to return and play in his regular position. In the second inning of Game 1, Longoria hit a home run to give the Rays the early lead, but that was quickly given up as Dwayne Wise blasted a 3-run homer to put Chicago in front. However, in the very next inning, Tampa Bay was able to come back and retake the lead, with Longoria hitting another homer to put them up 4-3, and yet another RBI from him in the 5th put them up 6-3. In the 7th, Balfour was sent in and made quick work, and Dan Wheeler, after giving up a solo shot, was able to retire the next 3, closing out the game in a 6-4 win. Game 2 saw more of the same, albeit without Pena, who was scratched due to having blurry vision. Despite Chicago putting up 2 in the first, Kazmir and the pitching staff wouldn't allow another run, and the Rays were able to bounce back with an RBI from Navarro and a 2-run shot from Aki. Add in a couple more insurance runs and a dominant closing performance from Chad Bradford, and the Rays were 1 win away from the American League Championship Series. In Chicago, Aki was able to set the tone early with a solo homer, but Matt Garza was unable to keep the White Sox at bay and ended up surrendering 4 runs. Upton was able to make it close, but the Rays couldn't complete the comeback, as Chicago won Game 3. Clearly not happy about the failed comeback, Upton proceeded to hit 2 solo shots in Game 4, and another pair of RBIs from Navarro and Floyd put the Rays up by 4 in the 4th. Each time the White Sox scored, the Rays were able to answer back with one of their own, and soon enough, Balfour was sent in to close it out, retiring Thorne, Konerko, and Ken Griffey Jr.? Wait, he was on the White Sox? To close out the first series win in franchise history.
I guess you're going to have to come up with some new math there, Mr. Manager. 9 equals 8. I guess 9 equals 4 now, huh?
9 equals 4 for right now, and let's keep it alive.
When 9 used to equal 8, it then equaled 4. And with the Rays' victory over the White Sox, 9 now equaled 2. But to earn a trip to the World Series, they would have to face a familiar foe. The Red Sox had defeated the Angels in their series, and now these two teams, who had hated each other for years and had tensions flare up in this very season, were now face to face with the American League pennant on the line. Boston, having won it all the previous year, were the obvious favorites, with the Rays being seen as a lucky team having a good year, but surely it was about to run out. Although the prospect of the series potentially being decided in the Trop, a place that many Bostonians find to be sacrilegious to the sport, seemed downright terrifying. Game 1 began as a tense affair, with both teams being held scoreless. In the 5th, Jed Lowry was able to break the scoring with a sac fly, as Daisuke Matsuzuka was able to hold the Rays' offense hitless for 6 innings. In the 7th, Crawford was able to finally break through, and another hit put men on first and third with no outs. Unfortunately, the next 3 hitters were all retired, and an unlucky bounce led to Boston plating another run in the 8th. The Rays once again had 2 men on with nobody out in the bottom half, but a flyout from Pena and a Longoria double play ended that threat as well. When it was all said and done, the Rays were shut out in a brutal game for the offense. Looking to respond, Game 2 saw both teams put up 2 runs in the first, with a 2-out rally from the Red Sox and a homer from Longoria. The teams would continue to trade runs until Crawford and Floyd were able to give the Rays a 5-3 lead in the fourth. That again didn't last, as Boston hit 3 solo shots in the fifth to retake the lead.
Deep down the left field line, is that fair? It is fair, and it's long gone.
But the Rays were again quick to respond with 3 runs of their own.
On his way to third, ball takes a funny bounce. They're going to wave it. Relay throw to the plate is off target, all the way around to third, Longoria.
However, it still wasn't enough, as a base hit from Jason Bay and a wild pitch from Dan Wheeler led to the game once again being tied. In extra innings, the Rays were able to get out of a jam in the 11th, and then in the bottom half, a couple walks and 1 intentional walk led to the Rays having the bases loaded with 1 out. Boston was hoping for a double play, but they wouldn't get it, as B.J. Upton would hit a fly ball to deep right, allowing Aki to tie up and score the winning run in a game that took 5.5 hours to complete. God damn.
Perez at third, tags. Here comes the throw. It's up the line, and the Rays have tied the series.
After going up early in Game 3, Upton struck once again with a towering 3-run blast, with Longoria following up with a homer of his own. Garza was able to keep Boston scoreless until the 7th, but even then it wasn't enough, as Baldelli's 3-run blast quickly put this one to bed. Game 4 saw another early jump for the Rays with 3 runs in the first. A bunch of homers from Pena, Longoria, and Ibar put them up 5-0 after the third.
On the left field line, that one's got a chance. That one is gone.
Boston was able to answer back with a homer from Kevin Cash? That fucking guy? I can't believe it. He sucked ass on the Rays, and now here he is on Boston in the ALCS? Of course he is. Why does he keep showing up? Nonetheless, it didn't even matter, as the Rays would put up 4 in the 6th, en route to a commanding 13-4 victory. All of a sudden, the Rays were absolutely crushing their rivals, and were 1 win away from the AL pennant. It seemed things were going really good. Almost too good. Game 5 saw another offensive explosion from the Rays, with Upton, Longo, and Pena hitting some more homers to go up 5-0 early on. In the 7th, with 2 men on, Upton came through once again to put the team up 7-0, 9 outs away from the pennant.
Here comes Iwamura around. He will score. It's a double for Upton. 2 more RBIs and 4 tonight. And it's 7-0 in the 7th.
But of course, things wouldn't be that easy. In the bottom half, with Balfour in to shut it down, he unexpectedly struggled, and soon enough Boston began to rally. A single from Dustin Pedroia made it 7-1, then a towering blast from David Ortiz put Boston within striking distance at 7-4. The pain continued as Dan Wheeler gave up a 2-run homer to J.D. Drew, cutting the lead to 1, before a single from Coco Crisp tied the game. In just 2 innings, the Rays' 7-run lead completely evaporated, and now they were feeling the pressure. In the 9th, the Rays had 2 men on with 1 out, but a double play from Pena sent them into the dugout. In the bottom half, Howell retired the first 2 hitters before a bad throw from Longo set up Boston with a man on second. With J.D. Drew coming up once again, he sent a long ball to right over the head of Gabe Gross, which ended up bouncing over that short-ass wall, ending the game and completing the largest comeback by a team facing elimination in postseason history. Yeah, that was a rough loss, but at least they were able to head back home with 2 chances to clinch. In Game 6, Upton hit his 4th homer of the series to put the Rays in front, but Boston was once again able to respond with a couple runs of their own. After Bartlett was able to tie the game with another homer, Boston retook the lead with a blast from Jason Varitek, and the Rays were unable to come back.
Line and cut, and we'll have baseball Sunday night.
That 3-1 cushion was gone, and now the series was to be decided in a crucial Game 7 at the Trop, the very scenario that Boston sports writers had hoped to avoid. John Lester would face Matt Garza in the culmination of their rivalry, and both were sharp. Aside from a Pedroia homer in the first, Garza was almost unhittable. As for Lester, he retired the first 9 batters he faced until a Longoria double tied the game in the 4th.
They're going to wave it. Here comes the relay from Pedroia. Up the line, and not in time, we're tied.
In the 5th, Baldelli knocked a single in left field, scoring Ibar to take a 2-1 lead.
They will load up. Rays lead.
Boston had a threat going in the 6th, with a man on and David Ortiz at the plate, but with one fell swoop, Garza got the K and Navarro got the throwout. Another homer from Ibar put the Rays up 3-1 in the 7th, and once again, they were only a few outs away from the pennant. Garza would leave the game in the 8th, giving up only 2 hits, but both Wheeler and Howell struggled in his place, and soon enough, the Red Sox had the bases loaded with 2 outs and J.D. Drew coming to the plate. And in that moment, Madden made an unlikely decision, going to the bullpen once again and selecting a young rookie in the biggest moment of his life.
With the first selection in the first round of the 2007 first-year player draft, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays select David Price, a left-handed pitcher from Vanderbilt University, Nashville, Tennessee.
David Price, selected as the first overall pick in 2007, was a very promising prospect, and in 2008 he made his major league debut towards the end of the year. He only made 5 appearances as a reliever, but in those times he showed great stuff. In the postseason, he's also made his fair share of good plays. That jam in the 11th back in Game 2, that was Price who got out of it. And now, here he is in Game 7, with another tricky situation. But all he has to do is get 1 out, and things would become much easier. He quickly got out to 0-2.
0-2.
Before a ball outside took it to 1-2. And then
The Tampa Bay Rays are 3 outs from their first World Series appearance, and the improbable dream indeed.
Price would return in the 9th with 3 outs to get. And after walking Jason Bay, he struck out both Mark Kotze and Jason Varitek.
2 out.
To face Jed Lowry with 2 outs. And, well, the rest is history.
Swinging a ground ball to second. This should do it. Wacky has it. Takes it to second himself. This improbable season has another chapter to it. The Rays are going to the World Series. Rays beat the Red Sox 3-1. Rays win! Rays win! Rays win!
It seems like something right out of a movie. A team that's been down on their luck and garbage for what feels like forever somehow comes together, and in 1 year they go from worst to first and win the pennant. I mean, you can't write a better script than that. But the Rays continue to surprise everyone. With Garza as the MVP and amazing performances from Upton and Longoria, the Rays, yes, these Rays, now find themselves on baseball's biggest stage. Surprisingly enough, the Rays are actually slightly favored for this one, as their opponent, the Phillies, are also coming in with little expectations. Their offense put up good numbers, especially against lefties, but after quickly dispatching of the Dodgers, they haven't played meaningful ball in a while, so hopefully they're coming in a little rusty. Still, their pitching can be lethal, so if the Rays want to win this series, they have to bring their A game on both sides of the ball.
I want to change the world, the baseball world as we know it, and it is working because very few people saw this coming. Are you kidding me? The Tampa Bay Rays have arrived with bells on. It is the biggest stage, a World Series showdown.
Is it some kind of miracle? They drop Satan from their roster, and suddenly Tampa Bay is the hottest property in Major League Baseball. As of this writing, they're 1-on-1 with the Phillies in the World Series, and I must say I greatly enjoyed watching them kick Red Sox butt. After watching them play the Phillies, I'd say Tampa has a better than even chance of becoming world champions. I'm rooting for them, even though they now constitute a serious future threat to my Yankees. Unless this year is a one-shot fluke. Who can resist this story? Besides, I feel a bond with the Rays. This post brought more viewers to my site than any erotic story I put. What the fuck? With Kazmir going against Cole Hamels, Game 1 looks to be a pivotal matchup. A game that ended up not really living up to the hype. Kazmir struggled right out of the gate, giving up a 2-run homer to Chase Utley. Tampa Bay had a chance with the bases loaded in the third, but an Upton double play squandered it. Crawford was able to get the team on the board with a homer after Philly added another run, and Aki hit a double in the fifth to make it 3-2. But the offense couldn't muster anything else, and the Rays would lose Game 1. In a now must-win Game 2, James Shields stepped up to the challenge, throwing 5 2/3 scoreless innings, while the offense gave the pitching a nice 3-0 cushion. Price came in the 7th to lock it down, and despite a solo homer and an error from Longo to make it 4-2, he held on to secure the win. An overall great performance from the pitching staff. Even if the bats were looking a little down. They'll get it together, hopefully. But hey, you want to know why they really won? Yep, that's me. 6 years old, gobbling a hot dog at Game 2 of the World Series. Personally, I believe the glory of that dog gave the Rays the energy to win. So, you're welcome. On a miserable night in Philly, Game 3 ended up being delayed for over an hour and a half due to rain, with the game not even starting until just after 10 p.m. Both teams were able to score a run before Carlos Rios made it 2-1, Then back-to-back homers by Utley and Ryan Howard made it 4-1 for the Phillies. The Rays were able to make a comeback as a pair of hits by Gross and Bartlett made it 4-3. Then in the 8th, Upton got on base and proceeded to steal second, and when trying to steal third, a bad throw by Rios allowed Upton to tie the game. Things looked to be going smoothly until the 9th, where a bad throw by Navarro allowed Eric Brunlett to advance to third with no outs. After intentionally walking the next two guys, Rios hit a grounder to Longo, a simple enough play, but when trying to get the force out at home, the ball went right over Navarro's head, allowing Philly to take the win. Because of the late start, the game didn't even finish until 1:47 a.m., and the Rays had to get right back up and play Game 4 the next day. Probably due to this, they looked completely dead, with the Phillies laying waste to the defense in a lopsided 10-2 affair. With the season on the line, the Rays looked to fight for their lives in Game 5. Philly struck in the first with a bases-loaded single to score 2, but Longo was able to hit an RBI of his own to make it 2-1. Kazmir and Hamels were able to put on good performances after that, but in the 5th, the rain began to pour once again, leading to Joe Buck even thinking the game would be called early. However, Bud Selig, commissioner of the league, refused to let that happen to such an important game, and so they played on in the rain. In the 6th, Pena brought Upton home to tie the game at 2. And shortly after, the game was officially delayed. As the tarps rolled out, the Rays had to have been frustrated by this point. Game 3 was already thrown off by rain, and now the same thing was happening in a do-or-die Game 5. This time, however, the game would not be resumed that night, as the rain wouldn't stop. And so, the game was suspended. The following day, the rain continued, so the game wasn't resumed until October 29th, 2 days after the game had started. As soon as the players retook the field, Jason Worth gave the Phillies the lead. Baldelli was able to answer with a homer, but Pedro Felix hit another RBI to make it 4-3 for Philly. The big three hitters, Crawford, Upton, and Pena, all went down in the 8th, and in the 9th, the Rays had a chance with pinch runner Fernando Perez at second, but it just wasn't meant to be. Every Cinderella story has to end at some point, and for the Rays, despite everything they accomplished this season, the incredible highs of making the playoffs, winning the division, and even winning the pennant, were soured by being unable to get it done. Sure, nobody expected the Rays to make it this far. Some thought they were even a bit early in their window. But the feeling of coming so close to championship glory, only to watch it figuratively and literally washed away, still hurts. Nonetheless, the Rays absolutely deserved to be proud of themselves, as in just 1 year they swept away all the bad memories of the Devil Rays, the culture of losing and apathy, and turned into a true contender. Where do they go from here? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. But despite not reaching the top of the mountain, 2008 is still remembered as the year the Rays exorcised their demons and everything changed.